Yeah, so that segues perfectly into my presentation, which is I'm from coBuilder, head up coBuilder, which is a Norwegian business that I've just set up the UK part of it this year. And the reason I'm working with Skanska is that Skanska have seen the value in collecting and exploiting product data. So they asked us, and they procured coBuilder to join them on the journey of getting as-built quality data into their models to help their clients and their facilities managers. So we may have seen this, and you may have seen this in various presentations, the information model, as in what BIM Level 2 is. And BIM Level 2 needs to provide an information model, but often we think of the information model at a design stage, so we might have a lovely Revit model, or put it into IFC and PDFs, and then people try to export to COBie. But as Skanska have seen, it's not just the design information that's important to them, it's actually the as-built data they want. What is it that we've actually constructed? And this generally across the industry is not brilliant. And they've seen that, and they want to make a difference to help their clients and their facilities managers have quality information and quality data. So this is the building that we're working on, which is the headquarters, and I won't go into much detail, but the Revit model of this is very devoid of useful data information. The product information, the product data, what this is made of, has got very little information in it as it stands at this moment in time. So what data do you need, and what do you want to do with this data? We talked about all this data out there, and Steve mentioned it, but it's no use if we don't do anything with it. So let's start with what we want it for. So the contractor might have a deliverable placed on them that they must deliver COBie as a handover requirement. The purchasing manager wants data around costs from the design right through to construction to handover. The environmental guy, we never think of the environmental, this is EcoBuild. There's a load of sustainability data that's important, like global warming potential. Is it BREEAM A rated? So what about all this data that the environmental champion wants? What about the health and safety person? They might want to know if there's any dodgy chemicals that are in this building, or anything that shouldn't be in there, certain chemicals. The specifier obviously always wants data. And then importantly, the facilities manager. What's the operation and maintenance data that the FM needs, and what are they going to do with it? So all these people want data. Now, the way we usually build, I often use this diagram, is often there's a lovely design in terms of what it is that we're going to build. It might be models in Revit with a COBie or an IFC output. And then the contractor just goes and builds their building at the end, or infrastructure, say, what is it that we've built? And then we go round to all the supply chain and say, can you give us your PDFs of what you've installed, please? And generally, the quality of that information is poor. It's just PDFs with PDF information missing. Someone creates an O&M manual, here's a load of paper, and here's a CD disk. And that's the way industry is working to this day. What we're trying to do is digitize the industry so that the manufacturers can actually start giving data, and the data that Skanska, for instance, require. Skanska wants specific data about the products that they're installing in their buildings and infrastructure. So they want to get this data as it's being installed. So when I install something, I give the data over to Skanska. So the process is that we collect the information, ideally directly from the manufacturers, the data directly from the manufacturers, or at the moment in time, a lot of them can't give us the data, so we're collecting the information from PDFs. It's not brilliant, but it's the only way in a lot of cases. We're then taking this information and structuring it, as Steve mentioned, having structured data sets. This data we always base on standards, so what's the standard terminology from the test standards they use? That makes a product data sheet. We can then validate this information, because we've now got the as-built data, to see, does it meet the sustainability ratings? Does it meet fire ratings? Is it BREEAM compliance? Is it whatever? So we can do an as-built verification that the data's correct. And then we can export the data to the model to create as-built information models. Now, in terms of Skanska's data requirements, this is just a little example of some of the key data sets that they require at Information Exchange 4. So they've said to the industry, here's some data that we want. You come back and give us this data. We don't want you to give us a BIM object with just general information in it and 3D objects. We're happy with the objects we've got in the model. What we want is you to give us specific data in a specific format. Now, You heard PDTs mentioned. Now, a PDT can be made up of many different properties, and what we develop is something called a master product data template, which can capture all the information about your product that you might want to share with somebody. But this data has to be interoperable. It can't just be in one format. It just can't be named in one way. It must be available in different languages, whether that's French or German, or Revit is a certain type of language, the way it names something, or IFC, or Kobe, or Bentley, or ArchiCAD. So we start with the standards, and we name the standards, and then we allow the customers of the manufacturers to come and pick the properties that they require. So they might want reaction to fire, or they might want compressive strength, but they might want it in IFC, or they might want it in Revit, or they might want it in French or German. And what we're doing is helping those manufacturers share their data, making their data interoperable. So the way we collect the information is either via PDFs, as it's done to this day, or to take the data directly from the manufacturers, which is a tool that we use in GoBIM with the Skanska project. So what they'll be doing is looking for products. So say, for instance, they're installing, I've put Knauf insulation here. Say they're installing Knauf insulation. They're searching for that product. If they can find that product, it's in the GoBIM system, they can then say, I want the fire rating, the U value, or whatever else it may be, and I want the IFC, and I want the Kobe. And that data will then be taken into a repository of all the products that are being installed on their project. So it's a big data and PDF repository that we're building up in the construction phase of their projects. It hasn't come out very well, but by linking with the GoBIM system where they're using, that Skanska, for instance, will come in, you'll see the manufacturer's products, and then be able to go into the product. And this is basically a PDT, where they can then select the environmental properties, or the geometrical properties, or the operation and maintenance properties that they require. They might say, I want it in the SIBSI PDT format, or in NBS format, or Revit, or IFC, or whatever format they wish, and that data will then be made available in that format, so that they can now export out into Kobe and put the properties that they've asked for into the Kobe sheet, and now start putting the data into the model. So again, this is the current model they have, with very, very little information on a certain product. But what they can do now is they can actually launch the coBuilder app, find the manufacturer that they've used, find the actual product, so this here is a tarmac product, tarmac top light product, and attribute that product into the model. So now the data, all the data linked from the product data sheet is now linked into the model. So they're actually creating the as-built model. And the same can be seen here with another partner of ours, Wienerberger, where we're attributing a Wienerberger product into the model. And then you can see once you click on that, this would be the Wienerberger ProTherm 100. It's not coming out very well here. But then I've asked for certain data about that Wienerberger product. Now via the hyperlink, I can now take all the data I need and where they come from, what standards. So now I've delivered, as Paul showed earlier, the as-built model. So I've now got the model with the data about the products that I've actually installed into it. I can export to Kobe, and I can give the drawings and the PDFs. So now I've got all this information available, and the facilities managers now, and the client doesn't have to resurvey a building. They've got a model, and they've got a spreadsheet, and they've got PDFs with all the information they need to hand over to the client and the FM to now manage this building effectively. And I think that's within time.
Nick, thank you very much. And a quick question that always gets me when you're talking about these kind of systems for housing projects is that in the housing environment, generally speaking, house builders are looking to build, to sell, and to move on. And so therefore, I struggle to see how you can convince people to invest in the kind of systems such as this, which have got a lot of value in the long term, because they're not in the mindset of holding on to assets for a long time.
So on that, this here is not a housing project. This is an office block. So,
or an office block. It's the same thing. You know, it's not an asset that people like to hang on to for a long while.
I agree. And this is a big problem often in the industry. How often do we see the FM community involved in this? And we need to get them involved in this because we're showing we can take cost out. Maybe there's an issue here. But, you know, I think, as Paul said, the quality of information we're giving to people at the moment in time is just not good enough, and clients have got to wake up to it. What do we give them at the moment? We give them a pile of paper and some documents that are not correct on a disk. And it's just pathetic in this day and age when you compare it to a car or a dishwasher or anything else. So the industry, the clients, have got to start saying, this isn't good enough. We're going to buy something. I want to know what the hell it is I've bought.
Provided, of course, they can sell it on afterwards. Nick, there's a big topic we could talk about for a long while, but we can't because we've got to rush.
Yep.
We're in a rush. Thank you very much, Nick. Round of applause, Nick Tune from coBuilder.